só GNU Linux foi Linus Torvalds.
Campeão.
Richard Stallman, fundador do movimento Software Livre e responsável pelo desenvolvimento do sistema operacional GNU Linux, é ativista em prol do software livre, contra as patentes de informática e por leis menos restritivas de direitos autorais. Com formação em física pela Universidade de Harvard, atuou no Laboratório de Inteligência Artificial do Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Possui 8 títulos de doutor honoris causa. Criou o conceito de copyleft, esquerda autoral, e a licença GNU, General Public License, a mais usada em softwares livres. O nosso palestrante, ele responderá às questões que porventura existirem ao final da sua palestra, e ele autorizou a bater fotos dele, desde que ninguém as poste no Facebook. Com a palavra então, Richard Stallman.
I'd like to... Hello? Is this working?
Yeah.
Please raise your hands if you cannot hear me. Uh-oh, there are hands going up. That means there's an anomaly in logic and the universe is about to disappear. So, in the little time we have before the universe Facebook asks people to give the name of whoever appears in that photo. And that way, Facebook gets more data about that person. Now, I don't think you should treat your friends that way. I don't think that's very friendly. But it's not my business how you treat your friends. It is my concern how you treat me. So please don't put any photos of me in Facebook. And by the way, I'm also disgusted with other kinds of surveillance. They wanted me to stay in a hotel tonight. But if I stayed in a hotel, they would demand my passport number to send to the police. Well, that's a disgusting way to treat someone. Fortunately, I found someone I could stay with, which is much nicer anyway. But above all, it avoids making me a victim of this state surveillance. You should be just as angry every time they do it to you. And if you make an audio or video recording and you want to distribute copies, please distribute them only in the formats favorable to free software. That means the OGG formats, OGG formats, and WebM. Don't use MP3, don't use MPEG-2, MPEG-4, Real Player, QuickTime, and certainly don't use Flash. It's very bad for websites to use Flash. And on the copies, please place the license Creative Commons No Derivatives, because this talk is a statement of my personal views. So, what is free software? Free software is software that respects your freedom and your community. So, it's a matter of freedom, not price. In English, when I say free software, it could mean libre or gratis, but it means libre. So think of free speech, not free beer. When a program is not free, we call it proprietary, non-free, user-subjugating software. Because a non-free program is a kind of digital colonization. And like any colonial system, it keeps the victims divided and helpless. They're divided because they're forbidden to redistribute it, and they're helpless because they don't have the source code, so they can't change it. They can't even study to find out what it's really doing to them. And often it's doing something nasty that you wouldn't like if you knew about it. But it's a secret. So, in order for software to be ethical, it must be distributed as free software. But what I've said is very general. It respects your freedom and community. What does that mean? I had better be more specific. A program is free software when you get it, if it comes with and gives you the 4 essential freedoms. Freedom 0 is the freedom to run the program as you wish. Freedom 1 is the freedom to study the source code and change it so it does your computing as you wish. Freedom 2 is the freedom to help others. That's the freedom to redistribute exact copies to others when you wish. And freedom 3 is the freedom to contribute to your community. That's the freedom to make and distribute copies of your modified versions when you wish. So if the program comes with these 4 freedoms adequately, then it's free software, because the social system of distributing and using this program is an ethical one, which respects freedom and community. But if one of these freedoms is missing or insufficient, then the program is proprietary software because it imposes an unethical social system on its users. In order for these freedoms to be adequate, I see, it's the projector. Well, I'll stand here. Then it won't be shining in my eye. In order for these freedoms to be adequate, they must apply to all activities in life, including business. But none of them is a requirement. The point is, you're free to do these things if you wish. Thus, with freedom 0, you're free to run the program as you wish. But it's not required. If you are a masochist, you can run it as you don't wish. And you're also free not to run it at all. With freedom 1, you're free to study and change the source code, but it's not required. You can get the program and run it without looking at anything, if that's what you prefer. With freedom 2, you can make exact copies and distribute them, but it's not required. We don't say you must give someone a copy or sell someone a copy. You can do it if you want to. And with freedom 3, if you have made a modified version, you are free to distribute copies of that. But it's not required. You can use your program privately, your version privately. So, as you can see, the distinction between free and proprietary software is not a technical distinction. It's not about what features the program has. It's not about how the code works. It's also not about how the code was written. Those are all technical issues. This is an ethical, social, and political issue, which is why it's so important. The use in society of free software is development, because a program embodies knowledge, and in the case of free software, that knowledge is available to the users to understand. Then they can maintain, adapt, and extend the program, and they can also use this knowledge in other ways. But the use of a proprietary program in society is not development, because it's dependence. imposed dependence on a particular entity, the developer. And that is a social problem. So if we see people using a proprietary program, we should try to convince them or help them to stop. And we should certainly never encourage anybody to run a proprietary program. Well, just 20 minutes ago, somebody suggested to me that I should use Skype. That's a proprietary program. Of course, I don't have it on my computer, but I won't consider using that even on somebody else's computer, because if I did, I'd be encouraging someone at the other end to use Skype. I'd be hurting other people. So I won't even use it for a minute on your computer. To write a free program is a contribution to society. How much? That depends on the details, of course. A lousy little program that does very little and doesn't do it very well, that's not much of a contribution. The point is, if the program is free, then it's distributed in a way that permits it to contribute whatever it has to offer. But writing a proprietary program is no contribution at all, because that's an attack against society. It's a power grab. It's an attempt to subjugate other people. In social terms, the program is a trap. If it has attractive features, those are the bait for the trap. So paradoxically, they don't make it better. Rather, they make it more harmful. So if you have the choice to write a proprietary program or do nothing at all, you should do nothing at all, because that way you don't do harm to society. Of course, in real life, you probably have other choices, perhaps better than both of these. But if it's just a matter of these two choices, to be ethical, you should do nothing. At least don't do harm to society. Essential. Why define free software this way? Each freedom has a reason. Freedom 2, the freedom to redistribute exact copies when you wish, is essential on fundamental moral. What will you do then? You will have to choose between two evils. One evil is to give your good friend a copy and violate the license of the program. The other evil is to refuse your good friend a copy and comply with the license of the program. If you are in this dilemma, you ought to choose the lesser evil, which is to give your good friend a copy and violate the license of the program. Why is this the lesser evil? In general, if you can't avoid doing wrong to somebody or other, it's less bad if you do wrong to somebody who deserves it because he's done wrong. Now, we can assume that your good friend is a good member of your community and normally deserves your cooperation. That's usually true. But the developer of the proprietary program has deliberately attacked the social solidarity of your community, which is acting very bad. So, if you have to do wrong to your friend or the developer, do it to the developer. But being the lesser evil does not mean it's good. It's never good to make an agreement and then break it. Not even an evil agreement like this one. Yes, keeping the agreement is worse than breaking it, but breaking it still doesn't reach the level of being good. It's just less bad. And if you give your good friend a copy, what will she have? She will have an unauthorized copy of a proprietary program, and that's a nasty thing. Almost as nasty as an authorized copy of the same program. It's nasty because it's proprietary. So, when you have fully understood this issue, what should you really do? You should make sure you don't fall into the dilemma. I know two ways to avoid it. One is, don't have any friends. That's the future the proprietary developers have in mind for you. No real friends. You could have Facebook friends instead. The other method, my method, is reject that program. Don't have a copy. Then you can't fall into the dilemma. If someone offers me a program without Freedom 2, no matter how convenient, I say, my conscience does not permit me to accept your conditions, so take your nasty program out of here. I won't use it. That's what you should say also. And in addition, we should all reject the propaganda terms that the proprietary developers use to demonize cooperation and sharing. Terms like pirate. When they call people who share pirates, what are they really saying? They're saying that helping other people is the moral equivalent of attacking ships. In moral terms, that's as false as could be, because attacking ships is very bad, but sharing is good. So let's not call them by the same name, how about? Thus, I refuse to call sharing, quote, piracy, unquote. When people ask me what I think of piracy, I say attacking ships is very bad. If they ask me what I think of movie piracy, I say, well, I like the first Pirates of the Caribbean. I didn't like the second one because it had a parrot that was mean. And I like parrots, so I didn't like that. So you get the picture. Don't use enemy propaganda terms because someone else did. Be on guard. So this is the reason for Freedom 2. The freedom to redistribute exact copies when you wish. The freedom to help others. Essential on basic moral grounds. Freedom 0, to run the program as you wish, is essential so you can control your computing. Every user deserves to control his computing. But there are proprietary programs whose licenses restrict even the use of authorized copies. For instance, there's a proprietary program for managing websites whose license forbids using it to publish anything that criticizes the program's developer. In this case, proprietary software literally denies freedom of speech. Obviously, if you can't freely run the copy that's there for you to run it, you don't control your computing. So Freedom 0 is essential. But it's not enough, because that's the freedom to either do or not do whatever the code of the program is already set up to let you do, which means the developer continues imposing his decisions on you, not through a license if you have Freedom 0, but instead through the code of the program. So in order to have control of your computing, you need Freedom 1, the freedom to study and change the source code to make the program do computing as you wish. That way you can decide instead of him. In fact, if you don't have Freedom 0, you can't even tell what the program does. And many non-free programs have malicious features designed to do things the users wouldn't like if they knew. For instance, they spy on the user. They intentionally restrict the user, and there are even backdoors which receive commands sent remotely and do things to the user without asking the user's permission. And these are present in the most commonly used non-free programs. This is not a rare danger. This is the usual case. Most people who use proprietary software are using programs with malicious features. For instance, one proprietary package that has all three kinds of malicious features that you might have heard of is called Microsoft Windows. People have found spy features in Windows. The features to restrict the users, those you can see because you try to do something and it doesn't let you. These features are known as digital handcuffs, or DRM, Digital Restrictions Management. The back doors are not easy to spot, but people have discovered back doors in Windows. So Windows is malware. Any program with malicious features is malware. It's designed to hurt people using it. But it's worse than that. In fact, one back door in Windows allows Microsoft to remotely install changes without asking permission of the nominal owner of the computer. This means that any malicious feature which is not present in Windows today could be remotely installed tomorrow. So Windows is universal malware. This kind of backdoor is known as a universal backdoor because it could do anything. So Windows is malware, but it's not unique. The Macintosh system is also malware because it has digital handcuffs. The newer Apple products, the iThings, are nastier. People have found spy features, and there's a back door. But what's really so bad about them is they have the tightest digital handcuffs ever. Apple is the pioneer in designing products that are jails for the user. They're designed to restrict more than ever before in a general purpose computer. Because Apple has taken control even over the installation of applications. Users are not free to install whatever applications they wish. They can only install applications approved by Apple. In other words, censorship. When users find ways to defeat this, they call it jailbreaking, which recognizes that these products are designed to be jails. So the Apple computer products are malware. Of course, Microsoft imitated Apple. Once Apple did this, Microsoft started doing it too. So the Apple computer products are malware, and so is Flash Player. Flash Player is gratis, but it's not free software, and it has a surveillance feature and digital handcuffs. Does it matter that Flash Player is gratis? That means that Adobe does not make users pay. I was aware of the injustice of proprietary software, which most people did not recognize as an injustice. I had the skills necessary to create this escape route, or try at least, and it looked like nobody else would do it if not me. That meant I had been elected by circumstances to do this work. It was my duty. It's as if you see somebody drowning and you know how to swim and there's no one else around and it's not Bush, then you have a moral duty to save this person. Well, perhaps that statement is too strong. we might be able to identify some other people like Cheney and Obama who encourage violations of human rights, about whom we should not affirm a duty to save them. However, I don't need to resolve those questions because I don't know how to swim. However, in the real case in my life, the work to be done was not swimming, it was writing lots of code. And I knew how to do that. So I decided to develop a free software operating system, meaning every piece would be free software, every line, no exceptions. Then I decided to recruit other people to help to finish it sooner. Then I decided to make it a Unix-like operating system so it would have the technical advantages of Unix. And so that Unix users, there were many Unix users in 1983 already, would be able to easily switch because they could use my system just the same way they use Unix. They wouldn't have to learn anything new. And then I gave it a name which is a joke. The name of the system is GNU, G-N-U. And this is a recursive acronym. It stands for GNU's Not Unix. G-N-U, GNU's Not Unix. And by the way, that translates fine into Portuguese also. Now, programmers love jokes that involve recursion, but in order for it to be a joke, it needs another meaning. Why GNU and not ANU, SNU, UNU? Because those are not words. GNU is a word. It has another meaning. It's the name of this animal that lives in Africa. So, once I make another meaning for it, it's a joke. But it's even better. You see, GNU is the most humor-charged word in the English language, used in countless wordplays, because according to the dictionary, the G is silent and it's pronounced new. So every time you want to write the word new, which is normally spelled N-E-W, you can write it G-N-U and you've got a joke. Perhaps not a very good joke, but there are lots of them. So we have been conditioned to associate this word with laughter. When people see the word GNU, they're almost ready to laugh, right there. Thus, given a specific, meaningful reason to use this as the name of a programming project, I couldn't resist. But when it's the name of this operating system, please do not follow the dictionary. Please pronounce it GNU. Don't pronounce it new. If you say the new operating system, you'll get people confused. In fact, you'll be saying something false. We've been working on this system for 28 years and using it for 20 years, so it's not new anymore. But it is GNU, and it will always be GNU. So please pronounce it carefully. There is another pronunciation error that you should take pains to avoid, which sounds like Linux. Strange as it may seem, millions of people use the GNU system and call it Linux, and they don't know it's the GNU system. They are really misled. How did this happen? In 1992, we had almost all of the GNU system, hundreds of components. Now, some of them I wrote myself. Some of them I recruited other people to write. Some of them, by luck, someone else wrote a free program to do that job. And in some cases, I persuaded somebody to liberate a proprietary program. For instance, in BSD. BSD existed in 1983. It was a proprietary modified version of Unix developed by the University of California at Berkeley. Well, I went there in 1985 and I said, please separate your code from AT&T's code and release your code as free software so that we can use it in GNU. And a few years later they did. So in 1992 we had everything except one major essential component, the kernel. This is the component that allocates the computer's resources to all the other programs you run. We had started developing a kernel in 1990, but that project didn't work out very well. It needs a lot of work. And it took 6 years to get a test version to run. I chose a design that was so advanced that it became a kind of research project. Well, what can I say? Nobody wins them all. In any case, we didn't have to wait for it, because in 1992, Mr. Torvalds, who had written a proprietary kernel called Linux, liberated it. He released it under the GNU General Public License. And that made it free software. So the combination of Linux plus all the rest of the components that were waiting to be the GNU system was a complete operating system. The first complete operating system that complete free operating system since the beginning of the is to save money. Now, free software is not always gratis. You can buy and sell copies, but it does create an opportunity for the users to save money if they wish to go to an effort to do so. For instance, if the Ministry of Education gets one copy of a free program, it can make a copy for every school and send that copy to the school using Freedom 2. Then the school can install that program in every computer and run it using Freedom 0. So, because they are free to do this, they don't have to pay for permission, so they can save money. And that's good because the schools don't have enough money. They shouldn't waste it on paying for permission to run proprietary software. But this is the most superficial reason. It's the least important. So we should never say it last. We should always say it first, to emphasize that the others are the real reasons. And besides, some proprietary software developers eliminate the possibility of savings by offering gratis copies of their non-free software to schools. Why do they do this? Because they wish to be public benefactors? Not at all. They're trying to use the schools as an instrument to impose dependence on society. Here's how it works. They deliver these gratis copies of the non-free program to the school teaches the students to use it, and the students become dependent. And then they graduate, and they're still dependent. And this developer does not offer them gratis copies after they graduate. Oh no. And some of them get jobs working for companies. The developer does not offer those companies gratis copies. Oh no. So the idea is that the school directs its students down the path of permanent dependence, and they can pull the rest of society with them into dependence. It's like giving the school gratis needles full of addictive drugs to inject into their students, saying the first dose is gratis. How can you refuse? Well, the school must refuse. The school would reject the drugs, whether they're gratis or not, and it must reject the proprietary software, whether gratis or not, because schools and other educational activities have a social mission. Their mission is to educate good citizens of a strong, capable, independent, cooperating, and free society. In the computing field, that means teaching people to be good users of free software. And never teach proprietary software, because teaching dependence goes against the social mission. But there's a deeper reason for the education of the best programmers. Some people are natural-born programmers. At the age of 10 to 13, they are fascinated by computing and they want to learn how everything. I am Saint Ignatius of the Church of Emacs. I bless your computer, my child. Emacs started out as a program, an extensible text editor that I wrote, which became a way of life for many users as it was extended so much they could do all their computing inside Emacs. And then it became a church with the launch of the news group alt.religion.emacs that you might be amused to visit. In the Church of Emacs, we have no services, only software. We have a great schism between several rival versions of Emacs. And we also have saints, but fortunately no gods. Instead of gods, we adore the one true editor, Emacs. To be a member of the Church of Emacs, you must pronounce the confession of the faith. You must say, there is no system but GNU, and Linux is one of its kernels. Then, if you become a true expert, you can celebrate that with our ceremony, the Fubar Mitzvah, in which you chant part of our sacred scriptures, that is, the system source code. We also have the cult of the Virgin of Emacs. That refers to anyone who has never used Emacs. And according to the Church of Emacs, offering the Virgin the opportunity to lose Emacs virginity is a blessed act. We also have the Emacs pilgrimage, which consists of invoking all the commands of Emacs in alphabetical order. No one knows what that would do. There is a Tibetan sect that believes that it's sufficient to execute them all under program control, under a script. But the mainstream church holds that in order to get spiritual merit from this pilgrimage, you have to type the commands by hand. The Church of Emacs has certain advantages compared with other churches I won't mention. For instance, to be a saint in the Church of Emacs does not require celibacy. So if you have been searching for a church to be saintly in, you might consider ours. But it does require living a life of moral purity. You must exorcise whatever evil proprietary operating systems have possessed computers under your control or set up for your regular use, and then install a wholly free operating system. Boy, I pity the translator now, because holy can be spelled in more than one way. And then only use and install free software with and on the system. If you make this vow and you live by it, then you too will be a saint and you'll have the right to wear a halo. If you can find one, because they don't make them anymore. People sometimes ask whether it is a sin in the Church of Emacs to use the other editor, VI. It's true that VI is the editor of the beast. But using a free implementation of VI is not a sin, it's a penance. And people sometimes ask whether my Halo is really an old computer disk. This is no computer disk, this is my Halo. but it was a computer disk in a previous life. So thank you. Now it's time for the auction, if they let me do the auction. Will they let me do the auction? Let's see. This is an adorable canoe that needs a home. It needs a family. And if you are the purchaser, I can sign the card for you. And if you have a penguin at home, then you need to get a canoe for your penguin, because as we all know, a penguin can't hardly function without a canoe. I mean, a penguin without a canoe is like a, I won't finish that. So, we can accept payment either in cash or with a credit card. If the credit card will work for international purchases by phone, it will work with us too. And when you bid, please wave your arm and shout the amount as loud as you can, because you want me to hear. So, I'm going to start with 50 reais. Do I get, which is a normal price, by the way. Do I get 50 reais? Do I get 50? It's 50 reais. Do I get 50 reais? How much? How much? Okay, 50. So I've got 50. Do I get 55? Please silence if you're not bidding. I want 60 I've got. Do I get 65? 70? I've got 70. Do I get 75 or more? I've got 70. Do I get 75 or more? I don't understand that sign. How much?
0.
How much?
0.
Sorry.
Please.
That's lower. I've got 70. Do I get 75 or more? Do I get 75 or more for this adorable canoe that needs? Do I get 75 or more to the Free Software Foundation to defend freedom? Do I get 75? How much? I've got 80. Do I get 85 or more? I've got 100. Do I get 110? How much in the back there? I've got 100. How much? Did someone in the back bid? Do I get 110 or more? Do I get 110 for this adorable canoe? How much? I've got 200. I've got 200. Do I get 220? How much? How much was that person bidding? I can't understand. Can someone relay the amount?
I changed my operating
So that person in the back seems to have bid, but I can't. How much? 300? She bid 300. Is that correct? Did you bid 300? I've got to make sure it's. Does that mean yes? I don't understand. I mean, could you come closer, please? How much are you bidding? I can't see your fingers from here, even with my glasses. So, can someone tell me how much she's bidding?
Bro.
Nothing? Okay, it's not a bid. So I've got 200. Do I get 220? I've got 200. Do I get 220? 220 for this adorable canoe? Do I get 220 to the Free Software Foundation to defend freedom. Last chance to bid 220 or more. Last chance. Going. Gone for 200. Please come up. So, which method do you wish to pay?
Credit card.
Okay, you should write down all the information on the card on a piece of paper. He was lying. Damn it. You just messed up the auction. Don't bullshit me. Well, then don't bid. Then don't bid. Don't bid then. If you don't lie. What's the point of lying? So, what was, I had 100 and, how much? That, you bid 100. Do I get 110? See, he just wasted everybody's time. He shouldn't have done that. You don't have to bid. Do I get 110? Do I get 110 for this adorable GNU that needs a family? 100 and, how much?
60 only, cash.
Well, he bid 100 already. Why are you wasting my time again? You're being stupid. Do I get 110 or more? Last chance to bid 110 or more. Going. Gone for 100. Please come up. You know, after this I'm going to answer questions, but I'll have less time to do that because you wasted it. So, how do you plan to pay? Okay, write down the credit card information on this piece of paper. I do. And then show me both of them. Also put a phone number or email address. And the price, and say it's reais so we won't think it's dollars. So now it's time for me to answer questions. I am sort of deaf. If you speak in an ordinary way, I won't understand you, even with a microphone. You need to speak loud and clearly like this. Now, if you wish to speak Portuguese, that will work if the translator will translate for you, but then I need to have a headset. Oh, yeah, people write down the questions, that's fine too. That works very well.